Hello and welcome to our very first episode of ctrlX developR season number 3. Here we go again. You probably know me from season number 1 and 2. My name is Christian Zentgraf. I'm Director of Technical Support and the host of this show. During the new season, I'm pretty sure we will touch again some interesting point for you as developers in the automation field. What it is all about? It's about ctrlX automation, our unique automation toolkit that has been revolutionizing the industry since 2019, and in particular about our controller, ctrlX Core. For this season, we have invited our developers. Each of them has its own special topic, like cybersecurity, machine learning, ctrlX OS, SDK, IoT, probably I forgot one, but
API.
You will, API, thank you. If you want to learn more about our developers, just go to our website. There they answer questions, or on a regular basis they publish articles, or just simply follow them on LinkedIn. That's enough of an introduction. Let's get to our first topic, security. I know we touched this topic already during season number 1, but a lot has happened since then. That's why we have invited Michael Langfinger, our product owner, cybersecurity. What a job title. Welcome to the show, welcome to our studio. I'm glad to have you here. I think it's your first time in front of the camera.
Yeah, that's right. And I find it quite refreshing, to be honest, because I would say in my daily line of work, I'm more used to working behind the scenes and not in front of the camera.
You mentioned it. Your topic is cybersecurity, especially on the ctrlX Core. I've heard about this topic a lot in the news. Data has been encrypted on servers and held for ransom. There are viruses that try to steal your bank account credentials. But to be honest, I haven't heard much about industrial devices. Aren't those devices usually secured behind a firewall and connected in special type of networks where nobody can attack them?
Well, you would have been right if you had asked this question some years ago, I would say. And even then, you might remember this, we had Stuxnet, which was kind of secured in a secure environment. But nowadays, those borders, they start to dissolve. You don't have this clear distinction anymore between classical IT systems and industrial control systems, I would say. And this is quite an exciting world, but not just for you and for me, but also for attackers. And this brings, I would say, a lot of new challenges.
Talking about challenges, can you explain why security becomes increasingly important in the context of operational technology and what those challenges are?
Yeah, and I think the best way to do so is to start with some phrases that might be familiar, like Industry 4.0, connected industry, industrial IoT, big data, and so on and so on. I hope your bingo card is already full now. Those are just phrases, but they stand for a paradigm shift that we see. Now, we want to connect our devices with other devices, other networks. We want to exchange data. We want to, as a user, we want to access the devices via an open API. We want to use well-established and standardized protocols known from the IT, the cool ones like MQTT. And this is all great, but with the increasing connectivity and openness, the number of potential attackers also increases. So I would say the biggest challenge is to be robust against attacks.
What would be the consequences of such an attack?
The potential consequences, they are much higher. I mean, I'm sorry to disappoint you here, but when your personal data is stolen, that's a big problem for you, of course. But let's just imagine you're standing inside a machinery and suddenly the robot starts to attack you. So that's, I would say, poses a threat to your safety. I think this is hard to compare.
Whoa, that sounds scary to me. Can you name some examples of that?
I think I already mentioned one of them, Stuxnet. This was kind of a sophisticated, tailored piece of malware that was designed to attack SCADA systems in Iran and their nuclear program. from all that we know, it had a huge impact already, but you can imagine what could have happened. And developing it and deploying it likely cost millions. Then we have Indestroyer, a little bit later, a few years later, which attacked in the Ukraine power grids. And yeah, I would say one of the latest evolutionary malwares is Pipedream, which is more of a toolbox that you can use to create your individual malware to attack PLCs and controllers. And it's so easy to use. You can buy it in some dark places in the internet, and even you could click your own malware together.
Is there any particular malware or attack from the recent past which everyone knows and you remember well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I can directly think of Log4j, which came as kind of a Christmas present in 2021. Which is a perfect example, I would say, when we're talking about the worlds of operational technology and information technology, which start to merge, because it's basically a framework that's broadly used in the IT, written in Java for logging purposes. And it had a weakness which, in worst case, allowed an attacker to execute malware on any device.
But how can a weakness in Java affect an industrial control?
Well, just think of an industrial control like a PC. I mean, it's very similar. And now imagine you have a SCADA system running a Java-based HMI. And engineering tools, for example, they are also very often implemented in Java. For the ctrlX core, in our case, luckily, after thorough investigation, we were able to determine that we're not affected.
You explained now all kinds of challenges and threats. How did this influence the development of ctrlX core, and how can the system cope with it?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up, because in the end, talking about solutions is, of course, always more fun than talking about all those threats and risks. When we started to develop the ctrlX core, security always has been a high priority topic. Our main target is and still remains to always be 2 steps ahead. So we do not want to provide you, let's say, some kind of magic security functions that you have on the device, but we would rather like to provide you a security ecosystem. And basically, I would say we follow the defense in depth approach to provide a level of protection that is as high as possible.
You use the term defense in depth. What does it mean?
Well, let me put it in some simple terms. It basically means that you have different layers of protections, so that when an attacker is able to breach one of those layers, you still have remaining layers left that protect your system. On the ctrlX core, let's say we follow a strict guideline, strict processes that ensure that already during development, we only use state-of-the-art technology. We have a secure base platform on the device. We have, of course, based on this platform, we have our services running. We deliver our devices secure by default, so they only provide all the services that you need when the device is up and running. And we have lots of other things like communication being encrypted. You need to authenticate on the system when you want to access our resources, and many, many more things.
Okay, this was a nice overview over the different layers. Maybe we can go a little bit more in detail. You were talking about a secure base platform. What does it mean?
Yeah, with secure base platform, or as we refer to it, platform security, we distinguish between the hardware and the software here. So maybe let's start with the hardware first. As you might imagine, before even starting to write a single line of code, we had to select the hardware to fulfill all our needs that we have. So we chose a hardware that allows us to implement a secure boot chain, so that we can know that only trustworthy software is booted on the device. We added on top a so-called trusted platform module, which further enhances the capabilities. It allows you to store your encrypted keys securely on the device in hardware. And last but not least, our debug interfaces, if there are any, they are also protected. So you cannot just plug in your cable and connect to the device and get some data also.
You covered the hardware. How do we protect our software interfaces?
Yeah, as a core of the system that's running on it. I mean, the best hardware is basically useless when you don't have the software that fits to it, that runs on it. So as a base, we chose Ubuntu Core, which brings a lot of cool security features already with it. For example, one big feature that we have is the sandbox mechanism. So each app that you install on the device is running in its own confined sandbox. Even the operating system is delivered as an app running in sandbox. So even when you're able to attack one particular app, the impact on the remaining system is very limited because it cannot access other apps or other resources.
That is indeed a cool feature. It's probably like on my iPhone, if one of the apps crashes, I can still use the rest of the apps, right? There are no blue screens.
Yeah, exactly. This would be a very good comparison. Yeah, definitely.
What else can we offer?
Well, as I said, we have this secure base platform or platform security. And on top of it, we follow the secure by design approach. So I mentioned this already, I think. You have to authenticate. So you have to log in on the device. And you also must have the permissions to access resources. On the device, only services are running that you really need to reduce the network footprint. And on top of that, I would say all the communication that you have with the device is encrypted by default. And you cannot just install any app you find in some dark places in the internet. I mean, like on the iPhone, I would say. So this is some of the added features that we have. And I would say the best of it all is that by using the integration points that we provide to you as an app developer, you can also use all these features easily. So I would say being open and being secure does not contradict itself.
Now I'm curious, how can I make use of the features which the platform provides?
Well, I think I already mentioned them. We have multiple integration points. Now that I see that you're interested, I hope you brought some snacks because explaining all of them might take quite some while. No, just kidding. So let's focus on the, I would say, 3 most important ones for now. Mm-hmm. We have the reverse proxy integration, which basically supports you in encrypting the data that is transmitted to your application. So it adds an additional layer of protection on the data that you send and receive. And it also takes care of the authentication for you, which means you don't have to implement your own login mechanism. And talking about login, we have the identity management, which allows you to define your own permissions, which means that later when someone installs your app on the device and configures everything, this person will be able to assign those specific permissions to a specific user account, which we refer to as authorization. So in the end, only someone that is authenticated, logged in, and authorized has permissions is able to access the data. And the third one is the certificate management. We provide you a full-blown certificate management already on the device that you can very easily integrate into your application. And the best thing I would say is that most of those integration points, they don't require you to write a single line of code. So even you could do it.
This sounds very good to me, but what do we have to do?
Well, in general, everything is described in detail, including also code snippets, samples in different programming languages in our SDK that you can find online on GitHub. Mm-hmm. For now, I've provided a very practical example that demonstrates all the integration points that I just mentioned. And we can look at this live now. Yeah, as promised, I've brought with me a practical example. So I would say, let's go. Yeah, on the screen, first of all, to give a little bit of background, this is the package manifest this is the crucial part when you want to integrate into the ecosystem. So this is the place where you define all the options. So I would say, let's go through all the important parts. And for that, let's start with the reverse proxy. As you can see here in the proxy mapping section, you define a URL and the binding, which basically specifies where we can find your content. And you also define in this place which resources of your application you want to protect. And yeah, that's it. Now you will have to log in first before you're able to access your application. And additionally, the data is encrypted automatically.
Just to make sure if I got it right, that's all you need to do?
Yeah, exactly. But of course, keep in mind that in this case, when someone wants to access your data, this person must be logged in. What you actually want in most cases is that you do not only have to be logged in, but that you also have the permissions. So for this, we have the scopes declaration part in which you as an app define which permissions someone needs to be able to access the data. So later when someone installs your app on the device, those permissions will be there and can be assigned to a specific user account. And I would say that's it as well. But to be honest here, you have to do a little bit of coding, at least here in your backend. But for this, we provide you the SDK with lots of samples for this. So it's really not very hard to do.
Okay. You mentioned the certificate store. How can I adopt to this store?
Yeah, I can see I've piqued your interest. And this time it's again very simple. No need for coding. So it's basically the certificate store section that you can see. And those around about 5 or 6 lines, they are really sufficient. So when you define your options here, you will later on the device have your own certificate store where you can handle all certificates and keys, everything that your application and the user needs. So now let's build the app and try it out. Okay, let's go. Here you can see the login screen of my ctrlX Core. And I'm logging in with the default admin user. Let's have a look at the settings page. You can see in apps, there's only one app installed right now, the OPC UA server. And just to show you already here, in the certificates and keys section, we already have this entry. We could now manage the certificates and also the keys of this OPC UA server already, but that's not what we want to do, of course. So yeah, let's go back to the apps section again. And let's install the VPN app that we just saw with the package manifest. So we now have to wait a few seconds for it to install. Okay, it's installed now, as you can see. Now let's go back to the settings page. We can see our VPN entry here for the app. And what's more important, we can also see that we now have a new entry in the certificate management. We can upload certificates. We can upload also keys. We could also generate a key. In this case, we could also generate a key that's secured by our trusted platform module. You might remember this. I mentioned it in the beginning. And what we also see is that now when we go to our permissions, we also have 3 new permissions here, all related to the VPN app, all the ones that you saw in the package manifest. And when we now create a new user account, we can assign those permissions to this specific user. And yeah, the next time this user logs in, the user will be able to access data or to manage VPN connections. That's it. And it was pretty simple, wasn't it?
Indeed it was.
And remember, what I just showed you was the VPN app. So a real app, not just some demo app that I implemented before this talk. And you can find this app in the store, along with a lot of other apps from us or also from our partners for the area of security, but also a lot of other areas as well.
Fine, sounds great to me. Coming to the end, one last personal question from my side. I'm one of those guys who always forgets his password. What can I do? Where's the password forget button or the backdoor I can enter?
I can see where this is going because this is a question that I get quite often, and I have to disappoint you here. This is something we had in mind when we designed the whole system. So by design, there is no backdoor, so you won't be able to log in again. So when you lose your password, you really have to reset the device and start from scratch. So sorry about that, but I can't help you here.
Thank you very much, Michael, for spending your time with us, bringing this interesting topic even closer to our followers.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
I think you did very well for the first time in front of our camera. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I did for sure, and I hope you liked the new setup. Episode number 2 is already around the corner. We will talk about ctrlX OS together with one of my colleagues, which you know from the previous seasons. The new episode will be online on YouTube next week. Until then, follow us, leave us a comment, click on the subscribe button so you won't miss any of the episodes. Catch you on the next one to be 2 steps ahead.